Welcome to IMC Live, the interactive webinar series hosted by the Industrial Marketing Collective. We're here to help you make connections, learn, and get results for your business. I'm Alan Finewald, Senior Writer at the Industrial Marketing Agency, Gorilla 76, and one of your IMC Live hosts. And this week, we are honored and delighted to talk about delightful content with our very own Director of Accounts, Rose Hansen. Thank you for being here, Rose.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So, Rose, you are a award-winning writer, journalist. Background is definitely at you have a master's in creative writing, and that's how you kind of came to Gorilla, right? Was originally in a content position, and you've shifted around a little bit. You've played in strategy roles, and now you're leading a portfolio of our clients. And yeah, but what we wanted to really talk to you about was kind of like I guess your bread and butter, so to speak, of content and writing and what makes it great in the first place. And we know, because we get to work with you all of the time, that you have lots of strong opinions about copy and digital marketing in general and how it's all presented on the page um, and all that jazz. But yeah, I mean, we just want to get your take on what makes copy its best and how we can be maybe improving the way that we're looking at long form ads, like just anywhere there's a written word.
Yeah. I mean, the world of copy and like what we consider to be good keeps changing, especially now that I suspect we all are. And if not, you honestly should be using generative AI to produce content. But the problem is that generative AI creates clean, polished copy that all kind of sounds the same. It's just like the same freaking boring, like over professionalized, bullet point driven garbage that everyone is using, and you have there's like no brand differentiation when you just use generative AI. And when you are talking to people who know how to use generative AI, they can spot it immediately. I mean, I have clients, one of whom may or may not be on this call, who occasionally sends AI generated content to us, and you can tell right away. So why? Like, what is AI doing that flattens a human voice? I don't know. Is this like a call and response show, or do I just ramble?
You can ramble all you want, but I mean, yeah.
Or you can ask Luke specific questions if you'd like.
It was, to be fair, it was Luke's interns who did it. But I can still see it. I mean, I see it in email copy that goes out, email copy that I received, within the last 24 hours. There's nothing wrong with generative AI. There's nothing wrong with using it to write, but I think where it fails is when you lose like the humanity. What generative AI does from the outset is it prioritizes like a pretty baseline marketing standard, which is just like being clear is more important than being clever. I remember when I transitioned into marketing, that was like the thing that the people that I shadowed told me over and over and over again, that as like a person who is coming from a creative background, I really shouldn't sweat like the artistry of a sentence and focus more on just making sure that the message was as clear as possible. I think that for the most part, B2B marketers are pretty good at that. Sometimes they get tangled up in technical like mumbo jumbo. But generative AI like takes that mumbo jumbo stuff out and it just makes your writing super clear. But the problem then is that the writing becomes super, super flat. So like if the focus is being clear and you think that that's the baseline, you're still losing the opportunity for market differentiation in your voice. Does that make sense? Did I just really ramble?
No, it makes total sense. I think that this is something that is really familiar to the audience and that B2B writing in general kind of gets that reputation. And that might be even more so why people are like, well, why do we need to worry about the copy being delightful? B2B copy's never been delightful. And what even is delightful in the B2B setting?
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions about this. I think like, first of all, if you all are B2B marketers, I assume you are because you're here, you should at least try. You should just try to delight your customers. And the way that you get there is by knowing them. It's like the same qualification that gives you the right to walk into your favorite dive bar and kind of roast the bartender or roast some of like the people who are there all the time. It comes from intimacy and relationships. So if you have done the basic groundwork of like researching your customers, understanding how they talk about things, how they feel about things, what their pain points are, you should be able to agitate those in a way that is extremely familiar without being like super performative. So what is delight? I think the easy entry to it is just thinking about it through like a comedic lens, which is definitely true. I see a lot of very funny, delightful content. And that's great. It can fall flat, but for the most part, I think if you're trying to make your audience laugh with something that you know is sincerely tailored to like their worldview, you're going to succeed in creating delightful content. Training the AI on tone. Yeah, I think if you can do it, then you should. Skylar, have you done that and does it work for you?
I have not been good at it, but I hear it's definitely a thing to do.
Yeah, I do it. I have AI agents for all of my clients, and it helps me like generate and brainstorm headlines and one-liners. And like with MacTech, for example, I'm always kind of nudging it toward blue collar, toward grit, toward like kind of sweet PG rated like dad jokes. And it does a pretty good job coming up with that tone.
Yeah. For the sake of the recording, Skylar just asked about training AI around like brand tone and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So can I show you guys?
I hear Grok has an attitude.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, you've got to know what your tone is, though, first. So, like, I think if you don't know what tone you're going for, maybe take a moment to step back and think, what do I want to sound like? Do I want to sound super technical and uptight? Because, like, that can be funny in its own way, or do you want to sound casual, approachable? Like just think of some adjectives. And that's how you start to train these tools is you say, I want you to sound like, write this in this way. You include it in your prompt. And that's how you're training them along the way. I mean, Rose, are there other tricks that you've taken to get these GPTs like speaking the way, writing the way that you want them to?
I think that most people use GPTs in an extremely professional way where they build out these like highly formulaic agents with rules and instructions and example documentation. And I do that too. But I know my GPTs so well that I can tell when they hallucinate, and they're pretty bad about doing that. So the way that I interact with it is exactly the way that I want it to talk back to me. And it'll start mirroring that voice over time. Our content director, we had like a pretty funny moment internally a few months ago where I was talking about like how to train your AI agent, and I showed our content director James Buckman how I talk to my agent, and it was pretty abusive because I got really frustrated with it, and I was like, I just talked to it like a human being. And our content director said, a human being that you don't respect. Oh yeah. But it learns over time, I think, through interaction, in the same way that like if you're trying to build banter with a person, you learn the boundaries of that banter by simply testing like the conversation. I want to show, Neil says we probably have ethical obligations to treat LLMs nicely. Yeah, I definitely live in fear of them going truly independent because I'm definitely going to be charged with abuse. This is this clothing brand called Reformation here I'm sharing on the screen. I love their emails. They have an extremely high open rate from me and click-through rate from me because they have nailed the voice of that brand so well. And what I love about it is that it is like a brand personality that feels like a person with a highly specific point of view.
So Reformation, for those of you who might not know, It's a women's clothing brand. I think there's men's clothes too. But it's all online. So e-commerce
Hmm.
clothing.
No, they
Can
have
I, can I ask you something, Rose?
Sure.
How do those all caps make you feel?
Uh,
Like the subject line.
I have no feeling about them one way or another. Actually, I think they're easier to read than this one. This one here. This some stuff wants to go home with you.
Okay, thank you.
My brain understands what the subject line is just looking at them. What I like about these is that the brand reformation like kind of traffics off of making flirty clothing, and these feel like flirty emails. They're funny and surprising, which is like such an old writing cliche. But I think that like the new way to think about them is that they're delightful. Like this email, I think is so hilarious. It's a retargeting email of the products that I was looking at, and it says some stuff wants to go home with you. Just so funny. Clothing for weddings, first marriage. It's hilarious. This one is one of my favorites of all time. Unique, sexy email. I mean, they just call on the nose exactly what they're doing, and it totally works. And it also like builds a lot of brand affinity for me, because I know that every time I get a Reformation email in my inbox, it might not be particularly useful, which I think is what B2B always wants, but it's always going to like entertain me. It's like the barista that you look forward to seeing because they are like a real person who delights you in real life.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Rose.
like, oh, go on, Ehal.
Yeah, I guess one question I have for you here is, how do you feel about the frequency of these emails? Because like I saw one that was like they sent you one at 2 a.m. and one at 7 a.m. I think like that for me is kind of one of the bigger questions I have when I'm doing email marketing is like often like how many emails are too much before they're annoying, right? Like I mean maybe it depends on who you are, but like for me personally, if someone was sending me multiple sales emails a day, I would be really annoyed and I would quickly unsubscribe. So
I mean, I think it would depend on the power of what you're saying. If all you're doing is pushing product that's like we centric, which is what I would say 90% of brands do, yeah, it's going to be annoying.
yeah.
Yeah, one thing I think that maybe the B2B companies could try to do from those is like saying the quiet part out loud a little bit, like poking fun at yourself a little bit. The thing that we try to just cover up with a bunch of polish and, corporate speak might actually be the most intriguing thing if you could just say what it really is.
Hmm. Yeah, I wish I could remember where I saw it, but I thought it was a really funny ad, and it was like what your boss doesn't know about engineering or something like that. And the whole point was that the products that people above you want you to use are not right for you. And it was just like that feeling of frustration that people in that position get, and it pointed directly to an unspoken pain point in the workplace that I just thought was hilarious. It's so human. Versus like, the 9,000th engineering product email that's just like engineered for precision, or whatever.
Yeah, I like that. Like, how can you make your content in a human interest piece?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite quote of all time that I think about all the time is from the writer Steve Almond, and it's attention is the first and final act of love. And I feel like that's kind of like the same, not to get too like woo-woo, but that's like the same sacredness that you should approach how you think about and talk to your customers. Because I think it's just really, really, really easy to forget that they are actual people. We just think of them as buyers, clients, customers, consumers of products, rather than like a person who is super frustrated with the products that their boss forces them to use because of outdated systems in the workplace.
So Rose, like I think you're spot on. Like you have to know your customer. And so like if you're on this, if you're listening to this right now, like what advice would you give to them about how should they get to know their customer better? Like where can they start? Because I think folks end up staying in that comfort zone of clear over clever, like let's just be direct, let's just talk about our products, like let's just say like we have this thing, it's for sale, we're going to be at this trade show, the end. And they don't try and like weave in any voice because it feels like risky, I guess.
Yeah, I mean B2B is terrified of having voice.
So like, how do you get to a point like where you're like, okay, I not only know what's like important with to my customer, but I know like how they talk.
I mean, aside from like the obvious of doing customer research and actually talking to your customers,
Oh, is that obvious?
oh, it's not obvious
I mean, I don't know, not to everyone.
that you would just create content without having any idea of who's going to consume it.
So customer interviews, that's one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking to your customer, great. You know, like in those conversations, like how, like, what are you doing, I guess, to like probe them and get them to open up and be real?
I think just listening to them. It's like, I mean, our content director also says this, I don't know how to teach you that you have to care about your customers. You have to care about them enough to pay attention to them. So how do they talk? What is this comes from like creative writing. What is the register in which they speak? Luke's customers speak on like a blue collar in a blue collar shorthand language, right, Luke?
He's like, no, he's
Yes,
Yes.
but you said shh for a while, and I thought you were going to say something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So Luke's customers speak in that way. We've worked with software clients who speak in completely different ways. I mean, these are people who use like long, complex sentences. And so the way that you speak to them has to mirror that same register and rhythm. So I guess like part of it is that you have to have a knack for imitation, which I don't know if that can be taught, but you can teach your GPT how to do it. So that's worth putting out there.
Luke, did you have a build on that?
I was just going to add, I already said Rose is a great interviewer in the chat. She wasn't reading it, she was talking. But I think there's also some value to a third party interviewer. Not that your customers don't trust you, but you're always trying to sell them something, and like Rose is not. And it's like, I have these moments in my life where I don't tell my best friends something that's tough in my life, but I have like, because they're in my big circle of trust of friends, and wife is friends with wife, but like I have these other friends I just see randomly at the gym or something, and I'm like, bro, I gotta like cry on your shoulder for a second and like spill all my guts, and it feels good. And I think there's some value to having a third party interview that's not directly related to your company. Maybe just for us, but it feels like a good idea to try at times.
Yeah.
Do you feel like they open up more?
Yeah, they just open.
Yeah.
They open up to other people that just say, I'm just here to be a reporter, just like ask you some questions and tell me, and we're gonna work it into the marketing. And someone from our organization might be like, what are you trying to sell me? Like, I don't know. I'm not buying today.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. It's also possible that you, the representative of the company that's trying to get information out of the clients, are going to be defensive about something that a customer says about you, and so they're less likely to say it, or you're not.
Yeah.
You're less likely to just probe it the right way.
They're less likely to say it, or you
Don't want to
hear you hear something through your MacTech red rose colored glasses, as they say, rose tinted glasses.
Yeah.
I think the other piece here is that it doesn't always have to be a formal interview. I think sometimes you get more of like that natural speak and just from like organic conversations, you know, like you can listen not just in like scheduled phone calls, but you can be listening online. Like, are you getting into forums?
Yeah.
Seeing what folks are saying and how they're talking about products in your space. You know, it doesn't have to be, this like really detailed interview about what do you like about working with us, but maybe it's just a phone call that you say like, hey, I just was checking in, wanted to see what's going on in your world. And then you force yourself to hang up before you like say anything about your company, like, you know, or your product. Like you just are trying to get to know them. And I think that's a big piece of like customer interviews, at least our perspective at Gorilla on customer interviews is like, we want to know not just like, what do you like about working with Acne Corp, but what do you like what are your problems on a day-to-day basis? Because that's where you can like meme it, you know, and start to like build in these like clever moments to the copy. I just think about, and maybe we can pull this one up, that example of like the elephant on a forklift.
Yeah.
Should we do a quick screen share? It's like just something where, you know, you're saying, we get it. You know, you work in a warehouse and, you know, maybe I'm not even the best person to speak to this ad if one of the writers wants to speak to it. But, you know, you don't always get to move a box.
Yeah, this is one that I came up with the designer Jenny, and it was one that we kind of felt like was a throwaway. They were like, let's just see what the client thinks of it. We think it's funny. They might just be like, what are you doing? But let's just see what happens. And I've never seen that client laugh so hard in my life. Like they're like, this is the thing that we want people to click on. This is says everything perfectly. And I think this is my new high watermark when it comes to being able to both be able to say all the points that we want to make and just have like a image that's delightful without being necessarily distracting.
Yeah. I think it's fun too because it's a little bit indirect. It's trusting your audience to make the cognitive leap to understand what you're saying instead of being so literal all the time.
But yeah, because like
It's fun.
we could have made it more obvious by having like a 3-ton weight on there or something like that. But the elephant bizarreness of a
Yeah.
live a animal that you would never think in an indoor setting being there really, I think, draws you in. And
Yeah.
for the podcast sake, we're looking at an ad that has a elephant being carried by a forklift.
I was riffing with ChatGPT on this subject and it came up with a pretty cute one-liner, which was funny ads are just watching someone dance, but delightful ads are doing the dance. It is like actually engaging the audience to participate in understanding, you know, what you're trying to say, which I think this achieves so nicely. While we're here, Alan also, I believe, came up with this ad, which was for a construction client that we have, who specializes in building, what are these buildings? Cold storage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one where the client said this, and I was like, I'm gonna take your word for it, man. I'm putting that smack in an ad. Like, say no more. Because sometimes the offhand comments are just like the real gold.
It's funny because, you know, you think about like refrigeration and the fact that this this design build construction company, they build a lot in Las Vegas. So like in like one of the hottest places in the country, the ad placement of we could build you a cold day in hell is just extra funny.
Mhm.
You know, knowing the context of their audience and like it's just it makes that one liner tell so much more of a story and
Yeah.
it like gets you to latch onto it.
Yeah.
And this
It
is
also sounds like how the people who buy their products and services talk. Like the word toasty is very colloquial. That is something that a person says.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the subhead says a toasty -17 all day, every day. And this is one where we overdid delight at one point because we also had like an image with it that, you know, was dripping icicles and all this stuff. And the client was just like, this is just too much. We're overdoing it. The line does its own work. Let's just
Yes.
have like an actual cold storage facility behind it. Let's not overdo it.
Yeah. I think a key element in delight too is restraint. It's like the other side of the coin. You have to know when to stop because again, it's about trusting your audience to make the leap. And like the act of being able to complete the arc is part of what makes it so pleasurable.
Yeah, you got to give them some room to work so they can be like, oh, I got it.
They earned it. Yeah. Yeah, I think like when delight goes wrong is when it's just crappy, lazy writing. I don't think I've ever seen this, but I could definitely see it being done. Would be a headline like make engineering software is sexy again or something like that. It just weird, totally out of context and completely out of touch with the target audience. I've seen reactivation ads come into my inbox that say things like "we miss you," which I don't like. It just feels icky because it's a fake sentiment. And things like, oh my gosh, when businesses call their customers family. I mean, unless you're a generational business with generational clients, that just isn't real. So the other part of delight that has to be real is like the underlying sentiment has to be authentic.
Yeah, that's like that part of saying the quiet part out loud. The quiet part is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Where do we take it from here?
I mean, I think I'd kind of like to sum it up. Like, I mean, you know, like what are the biggest like takeaways if you want to implement more delight into your content? You know, like what are the big points you'd want to make sure folks remember?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the first one is that delight starts with empathy. It starts with knowing who you're talking to and caring about, caring about what they care about. It doesn't have to be funny. It just has to like trigger that recognition that signals that you understand them. Let's see, I had a note about this somewhere in here.
I mean, you can write. So I think like you've said this a few times, like using ChatGPT is okay. Using it for idea generation is great. You can train it to get closer, but ultimately you want to sound human and not
Yeah.
flat. And so that's a big piece of writing with empathy as well.
Yeah. And also like I feel like we're at risk of implying that delight has to be funny, that it always has to be funny. And that's a lot of pressure to put on you as a copywriter because it's pretty hard to be funny. It's especially hard to be funny in writing. I don't think that that's true. I think that like again, the thing that makes something delightful and not funny is the recognition. It's the empathy underneath of it. So just by understanding your customers' pain points and speaking to it in a way that is human and not like self-driven or product-driven, you will get there. And I'm thinking specifically in terms of a landing page that we just wrote for a client that speaks to tariff reshoring pain. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, I feel like one way to put it might be write to your customers like you're talking to someone you like and
Yeah.
that you want to amuse or at least entertain.
Shoot. Peyton, do you happen to know that URL off the top of your head?
Yeah, I do actually.
Knew you would.
So I'll share it here. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Reshoring contract manufacturing.
yeah, so here's like one of the ads, you know, speaking directly to some of these pain points. I think clicking through.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nothing on this page is funny. There's nothing funny about it. But if you keep scrolling down, yeah, I mean, it's talking to them as people. You know, offshore is a gamble. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Your procurement strategy can't rely on vendors with unpredictable pricing. It's just like recognizing the humanity in the problem and not just the problem. And then can you go to their homepage, Peyton? I feel like all of the copy on this website is aiming for that. If you keep scrolling down, who we help and how. These guys specialize in contract manufacturing and overflow manufacturing. You know, we step in when only the best will do, when you need a long-term contract manufacturer, when the moment requires overflow machining. There's nothing funny here, but it's still like deeply human. It's human-centered.
Yeah, it'll make your target audience go, "Ooh boy."
Yeah. And then I love the about page too. So the clear over clever headline here would have simply been about us, like who we are, right? And that would have been fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that it misses the opportunity to deepen your brand voice.
Yeah, because everyone has an About Us page.
Yeah. And then that scroll all the way down, the CTA is like my favorite CTA headline I've ever written of all time. Enough about us, let's talk about you.
I like that. I like
that is
that.
like, yeah, that is something that you say in conversation with someone. And that is exactly the tone of the people who own and run this company and how they talk to their customers.
It's almost flirtatious.
I think it's just
almost
charming.
Alanis Morissette.
it's warm. Yeah.
I'm going to make
Yeah.
it a new goal to get as much Alanis in my copy as possible.
Yeah, I think another example in the manufacturing industrial space that I really like. I know, Luke, we've called you out quite a bit, but I think MacTech in general, the way that you guys run your organic social is just exceptional, and Gorilla has nothing to do with that. For what it's worth, that's pretty much all Luke, right? I mean, I'm sure you get some ideas.
No chat GPT for me.
Okay, all
I
right.
need a lesson there.
No, you're a
Um,
purist.
I'm a purist. No, I was sitting here reading, kind of briefing through my LinkedIn while Rose was talking because I was listening to things she was saying, and all of a sudden I realized without thinking about it, I always have like a hook. Like I don't strategize. I should, but I don't strategize about my writing. I just like sit down and vomit and do it, and maybe rethink it and edit it. I just don't have time to get down in the weeds a lot. So I just let it fly.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you understand your audience so well that it is intuitive for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just reading through them and I was like, every single one has a hook that's like kind of clever and funny. And then it gets into like a little more serious detail. And then there's a pun and then a little call to action. And I was like, I never really wrote down that that's what I was going to do. It just kind of happens. So
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know.
all of your boring bar posts, I think, are so funny. Boring pictures for boring folks. You know, it's a pun that works in multiple directions. And
Yeah.
my understanding is people who bore like the boring joke, right? That's like a joke
Yeah.
that never told to them. Yeah.
Never gets old.
That makes it perfect.
Yeah, boring bars, by the way, people.
yeah.
Bars that bore.
Yeah. I really appreciate it because it just seems like you're having fun with your job. You know, you have fun doing the work you do, you enjoy being there. You want to do a good job, and everyone at your company is kind of like exuding that as well. So I think that's it, but it also matches the MacTech voice. You guys are very comfortable with humor and like the dad jokes and things like that.
Right.
So
Being in the water cooler with you.
yeah.
Water cooler with me. Yeah, I guess my takeaway is that, or at least for the other people on this call, is, you know, at times I've said I want to make like 100 pieces of content so I don't have to think, and I have this big ammo cache of stuff to post and just let it fly, or even schedule it, and then I don't have to do anything. I just never do that. So I'm just pointing out it's okay to just write, and it might be wrong. Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Everyone's creative. I think making it as pressure-free as possible is really important. And again, like it doesn't have to be funny to be delightful. I'm thinking of B2C brands here, but I wrote down some of my favorite ads I've ever seen was Oreos did a huge campaign, I think during the pandemic, where it just showed like families on over Zoom in different parts of the country, like sharing Oreos, like eating an Oreo together. That is so delightful because it is so human. Car commercials are amazing at triggering this. Subaru especially, because they love doing like showing the car being used over time. And the way that the car is used has nothing to do with the car's performance. It is all about the fact that the car is like the vessel that is the witness to human events. So it's like watching your dog age, watching your kids grow up. My favorite Subaru commercial is like college sweethearts who go on a road trip in their car, and then they go to their college graduation or college reunion 20 years later, and the car is sitting in the parking lot, and they both remember, that road trip 20 years ago. It's so sweet. And then like real beauty campaigns are amazing at it too. And none of those are funny.
We just have a few minutes left here, Rose. And I guess like one question I'd like to ask you is like, when you do like, okay, you've made your case that you really like delightful content. You think it's like worth doing, but like, what's the business outcome, I guess, when folks do take the time to level up that headline from about us to
I would say brand affinity. It's like the thing that's most likely to make a customer loyal to you after product performance, maybe even before. I mean, Luke has been talking about a gummies ad that he's been obsessed with for months and months and months. He can tell you all kinds of things about this product because the brand voice is so strong.
Is it Groon?
No, they haven't sponsored, so we can't talk about them. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I think brand affinity is a huge piece. It gives people that, positive association with your company. It gives them more to latch onto. Like in that same vein, it's memorable, you're gonna be top of mind. There's just more to latch onto with that. Anything else that you think?
I mean, I think too is like as the creator of it, it's pretty liberating because it actually makes your job fun. Like there's a lot in marketing that is not fun. It is just tedious spreadsheets and file hygiene. So if you can like remember the stuff that makes creating fun, you should take it. And, maybe the suits in the C-suite are going to redline it. That sucks, but at least you tried, and you can keep trying it, as you earn their trust in the future with the consistency of the brand voice that you're trying to present.
Definitely agree with that. It's okay for something to get cut in the edit, but make an effort. Alan, any big takeaways for you?
Maybe you should see what the C-suite thinks is funny, just to, work that in there. Take care of that ahead of time. But
if TV and cartoons are any proof, they love being poked fun at because people are too afraid to do it.
Yeah, well, I hope everyone goes and creates a very shareable meme out of this that's very relevant to their target audience.
That would be amazing homework.
That's your homework, yeah. And when you share it, tag us, let us know, so that we can be delighted by it as well. Well, Rose, thank you so much for joining the show today. If folks want to hear more from you, where can they do that? Do you hang out on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn as a lurker. I never post. If you want to hear more from me, you're going to have to work with Gorilla. They really have to twist my arm to get me to come on these podcasts.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah, we'd love to work with you. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Our next episode of Industrial Marketing Collective Live is going to be on June 5th at our regular time. So we're going to be back at 10 a.m. Central. And our topic is going to be events and creative PR with Chris Casey, who is an experiential marketer. So he does some wild stuff, and we have some really fun conversations planned with him. So June 5th, 10 a.m. Central, you can join us here on Zoom. And if between now and then you'd like to keep the conversation going, you can join us on Circle. So Industrial Marketing Collective has discussion boards there. We do filter in the folks who can join. So you have to be an industrial marketer to be part of it. But industrialmarketingcollective.com is the best place to go. You can ping me or Alan or any one of the gorillas on LinkedIn, and we can get you hooked up for that. To the groups that the folks that joined us today, thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you and chat with you a little bit. And we hope we'll see you again soon. But y'all have a great Friday, and we'll see you next time.